Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Simsbury Planning Commission. Today is Tuesday, December 11th, 2018. If you'd all please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank SCTV for recording this meeting. It was helpful. Okay, now I'll go to the roll call. Please say here if you are here. Okay, so Holly Bem is absent and she notified me of that at the last meeting. David Blooming? Here. Aaron Levitt-Smith?
Here.
Craig McCormack?
Here.
Alan Needham?
Here.
William Rice? Here. Elizabeth Burt? Absent. Richard Cortez? Absent. Gary Lungarini? Absent. Okay. I noticed in the past few meetings that Rich hasn't been here. Anybody know if there's any reason for that?
Yeah, right. None of the business making excuses for people, but I know he has a PT appointment.
Ah, okay.
But I'd be happy to ask him.
If it comes up in conversation. I know that Gary Lungarini has a heart conflict and we're trying to do something to rectify that situation. Okay, great. Let's see, next on the agenda, we have several sets of minutes that we need to review. So Mr. Needham, if you would guide us through those, please.
Okay, we had looked at the October 23 minutes and found a couple of things. I understand there's a language change that's available.
Mr. Chairman, staff reviewed the audio recording for the 23rd. So one thing is lines 60, 61, 60, 61, and 62. It should read that Commissioner Needham stated his opinion that balance of homeowners' needs should be considered when approving commercial developments. Commissioner Needham stated there was areas in the plan of conservation development having to do with economic development that this proposal may meet, but however, the Commission should consider portions that the plan of conservation development having to deal with character of neighborhoods. And then the motion would be lines 69, 70, and 71. Mr. Needham made a motion to send a positive referral for application 1858 that was consistent with the plan of conservation development with economic and development, with the consideration given to safeguards to protect the neighborhoods abutting the project. Mr. Rice seconded that motion. Sorry.
So if we pass the minutes, that'll be part of it.
So yeah, and I'll give Tammy, I'll email you that language so you can add it into this minutes.
That's not in here, so.
That's not it. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're just taking it as it will be written.
Yep.
And I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so let's have a motion to do that. So I'll move to accept the minutes from October 23rd as amended with Mr. Glidden's commentary, the language. Seconded by Aaron. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstained as I was not at that meeting.
Okay, Tammy, so Dave Blumey abstained. Yeah, we have a quorum. 4 is the minimum amount required.
So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was not there either.
Okay,
I agreed with the motion because of the explanation, but maybe should I have abstained?
That's a good question.
well, I would say if you reviewed the video of that meeting, you could put your vote in.
Okay.
I'd say if you did not do that,
I did not do that.
Then you
Okay.
can abstain.
Then, I'm sorry, then I should have abstained. I
Okay,
apologize.
so 2 abstentions, Craig McCormack and David Blooming.
But that only leaves 3 people. Is that,
It's okay, yeah.
you can approve minutes like that?
Motion passes.
The motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Needham, next one, please.
All right, let's move on to the minutes of Tuesday, November 23.
November 13th?
I'm sorry, November 13th. Yeah, there's the reference on lines
Yeah.
17, 18. We just took care of that. Anything on page 1? Anybody see?
Yeah, I looked back at my records, and I think what I heard with the representative of the applicant at that meeting, his name was Richard Meehan.
With an M.
M is in Mary, so M-E-E-H-A-N. So I would ask that wherever that's mentioned, it's in here quite a few times,
Yeah,
that be changed.
that's remarkably close to my name.
Yep. I was very confused. I
Oh,
thought it
right.
was too.
Just saying,
Yeah.
that's me.
That's all I have for the first page.
All right, so that'll change
On line 41.
33.
39, 41, 42, 44.
49.
All right, so we're already on page 2. Outside of correcting the spelling of his name, can you see anything else?
Line 47, there's a reference to the name Joel. It's Joel Weissman who's the applicant, but I think that's a little too informal for the minutes. I would like it to say either the applicant or Mr. Weissman. And that happened...
They probably took that because the guy that was here.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if that's what the guy said, I don't know.
That actually was a statement that I may
Okay.
refer to him as Joel, just
Okay.
because he's been in my office so many times.
Yeah.
But I also think the guy that was here in
But
this place called him.
I agree with the chairman, you should refer to him as the applicant or Mr. Weissman.
So in general, I'm hoping for minutes that reflect who was for what and why, and who was against what and for why. I'd like them, certainly not verbatim, but so that somebody from the public can read the minutes and, well, it's not all there, at least they have a good sense of what happened. So I'm hoping for minutes like that.
Okay, so I have another comment. Lines 52, 53, and 54, it says Chairman Rice stated that he thinks, or he made a motion, but I don't see who seconded the motion. I looked back at my records, I didn't note who did that, so probably have to go back into the transcript.
I can check the tape.
Okay.
I'll check the tape.
And aren't we going to state motions in minutes too?
If the commission would like to have it, sort of how we used to have it, the motion stated,
I think so.
I can include that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be,
Would you
yeah.
prefer it like that rather than?
Yes.
Sure, I'd like to
That's
have
fine.
it clear what we voted on.
Yep. We'll talk.
Okay,
That's all I have.
so are we clear on the corrections we'd like? Mike, you've got it all, right?
Yep. I'll check on the second for that motion. And then,
Okay, can we go ahead and approve it, given that he'll add the second and the language of the motion?
I would ask that the commission table it so that at least you're voting on the amendment for the second should be reviewed
Okay.
rather than
That's
open-ended.
okay, that seems more appropriate.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a substantial change we're looking at. It's not
Yep.
just the typos.
If it was a mailing address or spelling of a name, I would say it's fine.
I think our next meeting's on the 11th of January.
That's correct.
Is that right? Oh, hold on. January 8th will be our next meeting. 2 weeks from tonight is Christmas, so
Right.
we don't have a meeting scheduled for January 8th.
Thank you.
So should we have a motion to table approving his minutes?
So
Can we
moved.
do that?
Okay, so Aaron made the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of tabling the approval of the November 13th, 2018 minutes? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
another one, Alan?
Yep. 27th.
November 27th.
Thank you. Okay. Minutes of November 27th. This was pretty simple. Anything on page 1? Got the attendance right? Who's appointed?
Is Attorney DiCrescenzo a staff member? Okay, so when we say staff was invited, that's sufficient. Okay.
Okay, hearing no problems, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
From November
Second.
27th? Second. Who's second?
Dave Blumey seconds.
Dave Blum. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Alan. Okay, next we have some old business to attend to. Do we have to open the public hearing? So is that just a statement or?
Just refer to the item on the agenda.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing related to application number 18-01 of Michael Glidden, Director of Planning and Community Development, Agent, Town of Simsbury Planning Commission petitioner for amendments to the following sections of the Town of Simsbury subdivision regulations. Section 7, subdivision application procedures. Section 8, subdivision submission requirements. Section 9, subdivision plan requirements. And this public hearing must be closed by January 15th, 2019. Okay, Mr. Glidden, maybe you can give us
So these are the amendments that the commission was working on with Mr. Rabbit over the summer. And just, I believe it was your last revision was in May. That was what was filed for at the public hearing tonight. This was referred to the Capital Regional Council of Government. We received comments back from them that basically they were okay with the amendments. So as we kind of stated when we discussed the public hearing notice, section 7, 8, and 9 these are changes that have been proposed. A lot of these changes they address conflict with either the current statute, case law, or the fact that some of the standards were just kind of put in every which direction. So what you have out of the finished product is regulations that request more information up front of the applicants and will assist the commission in making an informed decision on some of these developments. So the first section, I'll just go over briefly each of the main areas where the changes have been made. One is section 7, preliminary applications. Now the existing language in your current regs has been entirely deleted. The new language clarifies that preliminary applications are no longer considered mandatory, that they're optional and they're non-binding pursuant to state statute. Right now, your regs say that if someone wants to file a subdivision regulation, technically, they're supposed to file a non-binding preliminary application with you, which is actually illegal. It's their discretion, them being the applicants, whether or not they would like to go before the commission preliminary. In the same section BA2, plan contents. So the submittal requirements that we'll go over in section 9 too have been changed. And these areas have been expanded in order, as I said earlier, a lot of the additional information that's requested is dealing with the amount of information that the applicant provides that will assist the commission. Now this is where we're talking in the context of a preliminary application, assist the commission to really look at the issues to see, for example, is there soils issues that may prevent subsurface sewage disposal system to be located on the amount of lots that's proposed? Is there drainage issues or other soil-related issues may prevent the density or locations of utility features associated with the proposal. The other things that has been removed was, so you had a mandatory prelim application for any application for subdivision. You also had a mandatory site work requirement of the applicant and the commission. That has been removed. It's really an optional tool that's available to the commission, of which staff would say that it's there when you need it. It should not be a mandatory option. And everyone here is pretty good at when there's an application, you may drive by, you may familiarize yourself with the neighborhood. If you need to walk the site, sometimes you come with staff. If we have to have a formal site walk, that's coordinated through staff with the applicant. But it's no longer mandatory, because I think that really invades into some of the applicants, if you're telling them that you have to submit to a mandatory site walk. Section 7C. So this deals with the requirements, conceptual site plans, and really the preliminary, it's something that, as I said earlier, it's an optional. This existing section has been entirely removed. You can't mandate someone to come to the commission on a preliminary basis. Really, it's when the formal application is filed that they have the requirement to be before this commission. I don't know, does anyone have any questions so far at section 7?
No.
Now to section 8. Section 8, one of the areas that has been changed is the submission requirements. Your existing section 8A and B and C kind of gave a list of information which is not relevant to this section of your regs. A lot of that information has been moved into section 9. In section 8, however, the discussion of when a formal application is submitted, they are required to submit an application form with some data. It refers to state statute as it says when an application is determined to be accepted. Section B of this section deals with the determination on completeness of the application. That comes up again in section 9. Really, this is putting the applicant on notice. We are giving you an outline of information that the commission is requesting in order to make a informed decision on a development. Therefore, you are required to meet these regulations. Now, they can ask for waivers to certain standards. However, this is kind of where the applicant is said, you need to do this. Section C refers to the state statute. Obviously, we're all familiar. An application is to be filed within 24 hours prior to the next regularly scheduled meeting. The application will be received at your next meeting unless there's, for some reason, there's a scheduling conflict. And let's say that someone files an application in July, we take the month of August off. Well, from the date that it's received in my office, 35 days later, that would be considered the actual receipt because of the gap between meetings. So that's just clarified in your regs. And a lot of this would it'll help someone who's coming in who may have some assumptions on how the application receiving and requirements for when it's considered filed with the commission occurs. Are we good with section 8?
Yes.
I'll move on to section 9. So section 9, this is a complete overhaul from your existing. And as I said earlier, there's some information that is referenced in this new section that sits right now in 7 and 8. This is all kind of condensed together. It also is expanded in order to really, like I keep stressing the fact, this is providing you the needed information. Some of the lessons have been learned by previous applications. So, for example, in section A is really your general requirements. It talks about, you need a number of copies that have to be filed with the commission so that every one of the commission, we have a paper set ready here at the meeting. Two, the print size, we want full-size prints, so then you can physically be able to see the extent of the changes. The other is that all of these plans need to be stamped and signed by the applicable professionals. Because you see sometimes some of these plans that are filed with us that are not stamped and signed, then it speaks to, does it really conform to the class standards that they're referred to on the map without the professional stamp and signature on it. So this is one of those ones where when someone files an application, you can point to this section and say, well, is this really meeting our requirements for application documentation? Section B goes into further detail on the map requirements, and as I said earlier about the classes for surveys, and I apologize for the grainy example there. A2 quality, basically that's a level of accuracy. Class D is a type of survey that's based on other people's information. It's not the same accuracy as the A2, but in cases that there are very large parcels and let's say there's areas which are not affected by the development, the commission has the ability to say to someone, well, surveying 200 acres and you're only developing 3. A2, the 3 acres you're developing, the remainder we can refer to a Class D. And that gives someone the ability to save. As I said earlier in the previous section, we keep stating this in several sections, we need the design professional signing and stamping these plans. So it's just really making sure that you have information that has been prepared by a professional, reviewed by a professional, and certified by a professional. Section C is, once again, we're still in that whole plan stage, but this deals with the cover sheet and having a signature block available so that when you go through your post-approval process, we can have plans prepared for the chairman's signature when they file in the land records. And it goes into further detail about the needs of locational maps showing where this development is, and other stuff that will assist the commission kind of getting their bearings on just overall. This is the cover sheet. This is not plan specific, but at least then on your front cover you know where the application is located in town. Section D, reference maps. This is a new section. This deals with making sure that you have the proper reference maps such as soil maps or previous approved subdivisions. So you know whether or not you're dealing with an application that a wetlands permit is required for the division, or that you're dealing with a re-subdivision versus subdivision. The concern is with re-subdivision, a public hearing is mandatory by state law. Subdivision is optional. It's at the commission's discretion for requirements of a public hearing. Section E, this is also a new section, boundary survey map. This just deals with kind of putting all the details that are required in order to make a full assessment, such as your limits of wetland soils, limits of the floodplain. Floodplain is, we're referring to the 1983 North American Vertical Datum Set, which is the current vertical datum set for the flood insurance rate map, location of existing utilities. Topography, this is a big change out of your current regulations. You are now requiring, instead of using other people's data, meaning GIS, NRCS, or other sources for topography, people are required to provide a T2 class survey, meaning a surveyor, he or she has gone out in the field and has certified what the existing and proposed grades will be for development. This is vital when reviewing either areas of lot, whether they're considered buildable under your buildable square, meaning you don't have steep slopes, to really assess the grading and drainage associated with the development. If you're using GIS data for topography, we have experienced areas in town where the GIS topo is off between 5 and 10 feet. So your current regs allow you to use such data. While it could be user-friendly, in the end, it's not, because a person can go through, have a development approved, and find out, hey, my basin doesn't work, and I'm flooding out my neighbor. Now I'm in court dealing with a bigger issue, which could have been addressed if a Class T2 topography survey was provided with this application. The other is making sure that the proper monumentation and property corners are marked, both in the field referred to on the application. This is a big thing if we're dealing with a development associated with a new road and you have multiple lots. You want to make sure if you have every turn, jog, and a property line that the proper corners are marked, because in the end, when someone buys those properties, if there's no marking out there, I mean, everyone knows it. It becomes, so where's my property line? Over here, over here. So this is just kind of setting the tone. Section E, site development. I guess a lot of this section was carried over. However, I'll point out the new standards that are added. One is the traffic calming methods for the development, if proposed. So it kind of gives the commission some discretion on determining, are there need to provide traffic calming methods for the new development versus the surrounding area? How does it integrate with the existing roadway network? So traffic lights, appropriate location of the road, etc. Present foliage line, basically documenting where are the existing tree lines. So then from an erosion sediment control, drainage, and overall development standpoint, the Commission has a good handle on what is the extent of grading, land disturbance, etc. that will occur as associated with the development. I said earlier, it's repeated again, this is part of some of the changes that DEP wanted us to adopt, dealing with floodplain management, referring to the current vertical datum for the flood insurance rate map, along with the standards associated with it. The slopes of driveways and the treatment, that's something that your regs are kind of silent to right now. This will get us a handle. The example here is a picture of a lot development that was in the previous town I worked in. That lot development, if I showed you a plan, you'd say, well, it doesn't look too steep. That's a 20% grade on that driveway. So from a erosion sediment control standpoint, I could tell you that was a mudslide, basically going out to the road during construction. Worse was when he finally built the house during snow, etc. It was a hazardous situation. This is something that you should, as a commission, be aware, because if you remember, we have a previous approved subdivision off of Shingle Mill Road that the treatment of driveway surface was a question that came up. It was, your regs are kind of silent to it now. This will address that so we don't have another issue like that. And it's clearly stated in the plans at the time of submission, my driveway is going to be paved or crushed stone. In the sense of a steeper driveway, you may, once we exceed 10%, that's where the commission may say, well, this is a very steep driveway, it should be paved. It should not be a crushed stone driveway. For purposes of, like I said, like in the winter months where there'd be a concern that emergency management personnel may not be able to get up the driveway to that person's house. Utility details. Within 300 feet of the proposed development need to be shown. So stormwater, sewer, and water are the main utilities that need to be illustrated on these plans. Gas, you could require gas too, because the way the language is written is utilities. The only thing I missed two things out of here was rights to drain. So dealing with your development of drainage system, if it's going someplace else and it's not on that property, they are to provide documentation that they have the rights to have their outlet for the drainage system to go wherever it goes. Street station numbers. So basically street station numbers are dealing with the monumentation in the road, and that gives you an idea of curvature, topography, etc. It is control points that the engineering department will be looking for as they look at the roadway layout for consistency with the highway standards. I'll just take a quick break. Anyone have any questions so far on section 9? Okay. Section G, construction plans. Once again, this is a new section where a professional engineer must certify that the roadway and stormwater management features have been designed appropriately and that they're going to function. This section also has to call out to roadway development, and that it also has been engineered and the professional, he or she is certifying that. Right now your regs are kind of silent, but you could have another discipline designing these features, which could be problematic because the professional engineer really should be looking at drainage, how it works, and how roadways are laid out, because in the end this becomes an engineering question. The next section, H, this is another section which has been updated to refer to current erosion sediment control requirements for applications. It also has comments on having the ENS plan be reviewed and approved, and signature on the plans that the ENS plan has been reviewed and approved. This is a housekeeping item that has long since it needed to be addressed. Your next section has to deal with stormwater management. The stormwater management section in this really refers to the guidance documents, such as the stormwater article, etc., that we have, and along with the Connecticut Stormwater Manual as the guiding documents for developing applications, and kind of sets design criteria for people to submit applications. Discussing on the frequency of storm events they need to design to the percentile of overall pollutant removal that these features need to take in consideration. So that's that section. This is new. These are new. This one is a new section. Section J. Sewage disposal, everyone's favorite, and water supply. Just basically making sure adequate information is provided that either A, you can have wells on the property, so it gets into your soil information. If you have on-site sewage disposal systems that Farmington Valley Health District has reviewed and approved, or if you're connected into the public systems that either Aquarion, WPCA, etc. have approved these connections and that they exist. And the commission may recall there was you had an application on Old Farms Road a while ago. It was withdrawn, but we had issues with low flow with water, and it posed potential issues for both the lots on top of the cul-de-sac, but also from the firefighting perspective. And that was something that, under your regs, technically they did not have to provide that documentation from Aquarion. We as staff asked for it because we were aware of a low flow situation in that area. This now will address, and so those situations will not occur to you. Solar access in section K. So that's required under state statute. You have it referred to in your current regs. This kind of cleans it up. Section L for sidewalks. So this is an optional requirement of the commission. Really what it lays out is there's certain situations where sidewalks should be proposed. Obviously the commission is limited to on-site improvements. You can't go beyond the existing development, but you kind of gave a commentary to applicants going, proximity to schools, shopping centers, identified if there's gaps in trails, etc., in the VOCD to connect these things. So those are kind of given developers that they're on notice that these are on there. Stone walls. So stone walls is brought up in the regs, and really this section has to deal with identifying them and, if feasible, preserving stone walls within the developments.
Can you give me 1 minute on solar access?
Go for it.
Just really what does that mean?
So it's orientation of the house,
It's
clearing,
not like New
grading.
York where you have to let the sunlight.
No, but I mean, it's really, you're taking consideration as you're laying out your development, a solar access for the homes. So you're not putting the houses in an orientation which may prohibit alternative energy as an option on its houses. We're supposed, under state statute, the planning commission is supposed to promote solar access when approving or reviewing new applications. Anyone, any other questions in section 9 so far? So this is, last few sections here. Section N, development review. This is where the town planner is identified as the agent for the commission. Section O, additional plan requirements. So this is not a new section. You have it kind of buried. This has to deal with the scenic hillside protection and identifies on the east side of town and west side of town the elevations that trigger hillside protection review. So ridgeline protection is really what it's called now. Statute's been updated, but this is a carryover. It has worked in the past. We haven't really had issues that, like, if you ever driving on 44 in Avon, you look up at the mountain, you just see the area denuded around development. That's a result of not having ridgeline protection. So that's what this is. It's an existing reg. This is not new. It's just living now in a section rather than buried in a subsection. Section P, so that's the catch-all. If you need supplemental data that the commission could refer to on anything in order to make a informed decision. Lastly is section Q. This is the big one. Puts applicants on notice. If you fail to meet our standards that are described here, it will be considered incomplete and you're subject to a denial, if not withdrawn. And that's all I had. If anyone has any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Glidden. It was a good summary.
Yep.
Commissioners, the public hearing is still open. Any members of the public wish to comment? There are no comments from the public. Okay. So I think what I'd like to do is close the public hearing, right? And then we can debate the application. Okay? So all in favor of closing the public hearing for application 18-01? Sorry, Mike?
Just a motion and a second.
I move to close the hearing.
Okay, so Aaron.
Second?
Aaron moved to close the hearing. Craig seconded. All in favor of closing the public hearing for application number 18-01, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, so now, let us take up application 18-01. Commissioners, any comments to the proposed changes to the subdivision regulations?
I thought Mike's summary of the proposed changes was thorough, complete, very helpful. I think as he explained it, it's very logical in terms of the changes made, additions made.
Dave?
I support that comment. Michael, are these regulations generally the same as other communities of our size and dimension?
Yes, for the most part.
We're not going excessively.
No, but I will say that Canton is doing a comprehensive update of their regs right now, which I just received the other day, so I have not completed that review. But for the most part, subdivision regulations are pretty similar throughout. I mean, I'll say
We're not an outlier in the sense of being significantly greater.
Also, the previous community I worked for, Waterford, which was a similar population, we're at 23,000. Waterford is at 21. I'll say that Waterford was a little more conservative and had some stricter standards than this community. However, for the main portions of the regs, one little different because it's a coastal community, so there was a little heavier environmental protection in their regs. But from the procedure, submission requirements, I would say they were comparable to them. So that's a similar size community.
Thank you.
So Mike, you pointed out some, the changes that were to bring the regulations in compliance with state statute, others that, I think that made a lot of sense with regards to requirements of applicants and making it clear to them what would be expected and so on and so forth. Was there anything else driving the recommendations for these changes? It seemed mostly compliance related as well as clarification related. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Yeah, so nothing else, no other driving.
I think that, there have probably been some thoughts to kind of update the regulations. And the compliance issues was kind of the catalyst for us to consider any other changes. And I think for the most part, it was update to current standards, current conventions, okay, as far as the application requirements.
Right.
So, we worked on it a long time. I worked with, you remember Jamie had proposed this a number of times, and I worked with Mike. We sat down and went through the whole thing. So I'm very confident that we're not overly burdensome for an applicant, and we got rid of some of the illegal stuff too.
That's always good.
That was a benefit.
Yeah.
Bill, another question. Do we have any current applications, if this is adopted, who are affected by the change in the regulations?
So you have one application that's received tonight, which will be subject to the regulations that are in place when they file their application. Staff's next comment was, if the commission's comfortable with this and you're going to make any motion to approve, you need to set effective date. So I'm looking at, just to get us out of all the appeal periods, just because there's the holiday too, setting an effective date of January 8th, 2019. That gives staff 3 weeks to run our notice requirements and file with the town clerk without any surprises from the Hartford Current. And it will give the commission any application then filed on January 8th, 2019 or later would be subject to these new changes. So, meaning your meeting in January on the 8th.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so anything for that meeting would be subject to these new changes, which I anticipate, I've said to the commission, there's at least one more application coming.
So if we consider the effective date January 8th, does that put a lot of pressure on town staff to be in a position to publish it by that time?
It gives us enough breathing time, just in case if there's issues with running the legal notices. That's my only concern. We've been recently had a few snafus courtesy of the newspaper on legal notices. I prefer to have the extra week in there just in case, so there's no technical errors and notice.
You've taken into consideration the holiday?
Yes. So that's why I put, you could do January 1st, 2019 if the commission wants to push it, but January 8th would assure that there's no issues.
I don't have an issue with that.
Michael, does this make it, I want to be sure too, we're not making it more cumbersome for the applicants. So anyway,
Well,
do you know what I mean?
the commission has the ability to waive.
Okay.
Unlike the zoning commission, you have the ability to waive subdivision standards by a 2/3 vote. So anyone who comes before you, let's just say they have that situation where it just economically, it doesn't make sense for whatever reason. You have the ability to say, no, you know what, we're going to waive this standard, we'll allow you by a 2/3 vote to submit an application, and you don't have to worry about this portion of the submission requirements or design
So
standards.
Aaron, I think that there may be a few additional items to be submitted or included on the plans, but there's there's nothing that's being proposed that would make it more difficult
Right, that was-
on an applicant.
Yeah, because I think some of the things that we're asking him to add, it makes sense. I just don't, I don't want it to be more cumbersome.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, then I would make a motion that we accept the proposed revised subdivision application, subdivision regulations contained in application number 1801 as submitted with an effective date of January 8th, 2019.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so Bill made the motion, David seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the new regulations, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries unanimously. Thanks for finishing that up for us, Mike. I know that was a bit of unfinished business, with the previous planning director. So, yeah, that's great. Thank you. How do you go about notifying applicants of this?
We'll post our regs online, and then the one applicant that I know that's coming is conventional subdivision, and I'll share with them the new language and say, as you're completing your application, preparing for submission, please look at this.
Yep. All right, next on the agenda, and forgive me if I get this wrong, but this next referral for a text amendment, this is under old business, Mike, but this is the first time we've seen this.
Yeah, it should be under new business as a referral. I apologize, Carrie put in the wrong slot.
Okay, so let's have the minutes show, Tammy, that what's shown under old business item 3, referrals, 3A, is actually new business, okay? Thank you. Okay, so let's take that one up. A CGS 8-3A, referral to the zoning commission for zoning commission application 18-64 of Michael Glidden, CFM, CZOE, Director of Planning Community Development, applicant on behalf of the Simsbury Zoning Commission for text amendments to Chapter 4, Section 3.2.I, and Chapter 4, Section 3.4.D of the Simsbury Center Code, reclassifying distilleries, wineries, and breweries in the Simsbury Center Code area as restaurant bar use instead of light industrial. Okay, so, let's see. Public hearing, zoning commission public hearing scheduled for the 17th, which is next week. Okay, Mr. Glidden, what do we have to say about this one?
So the zoning commission received a preliminary application from a gentleman who's operating a whiskey distillery out of Christmill, and he was wishing to relocate to the center of town. The issue is breweries, distilleries, etc. are not permitted in the center of Simsbury. The zoning commission felt that this is a use that they would like to see in some of the areas in the center, and asked staff, instead of this gentleman who was preparing this preliminary to the commission, to prepare the application. So you have the completed application. Attached to the application form is the actual text that's proposed. It's not reinventing the wheel, it's moving brewery, winery, distillery from what's currently light industrial, which is not permitted in any zone, to restaurant, bar, which is, these are allowed in SC1, in ground and upper story, SC2 within the ground and upper story, and SC3 in the ground. And attached to that is the actual regulating pan for the Simsbury Center. So the SC1, if you're looking is that light pink area. You see it like right along Hot Meadow Street. That little area where breweries, distilleries, wineries could be allowed in either first or second floor. The SC2 zone is the red, so this is right here. Would be allowed, once again, in the ground and upper stories. And the SC3, which is the dark, call it purple, magenta, over here. So the gentleman who came to the zoning commission is looking at the Hickson building behind Bank of America to move his distillery into, it's the old train station. Wants to put his distillery there. He's currently brewing or distilling vodka, whiskey, rum, and brandy. He's not open to the public because his labels have yet to be approved by the federal government. This has been a 2-year-long process of getting his federal licenses. But in his current location, his landlord would like him to leave because they have a tenant on the second floor that wishes to expand into the basement where he's located. He's kind of spread out to begin with. He's got more space than he needs. So the Hickson building was identified as a small area, fits his needs. He does not need the visibility of Hot Meadow Street. So,
What's in that Hickson building now?
there was a
Insurance? Gift shop.
gift shop.
Or-
Yes, they were there for the Beehive,
Yeah,
maybe 8 months.
I was gonna say they weren't there very long.
I want to say shy of a year,
Yeah.
but I
So
think
the business of the distillery is making this stuff.
he will sell it and it will be a tasting room.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
They serve food as well?
He will not, or at least he has said so far he's not interested. If it was, and staff has been approached by at least 2 people that were looking for locations for a brewery in town. So this is an issue for the zoning commission, at least from a brewery perspective, that when Frank, who's the current operator of what's called Potterman Spirits, that's what he calls his business over on Personal, was looking for places. Under current regs, really, you're restricted to just go to the industrial zones, which after touring the facility and he showed me how it's set up over there, he's not the large scale sort of distillery that you would say is classic to
Jack Daniel's.
Yeah, it's not Jack Daniel's, sorry.
Like the one in Bloomfield, small.
Yeah, I'd almost, call it a craft or boutique sort of thing.
It's gonna be popular.
So he'll sell it to the public on his premises
And to businesses.
and to liquor stores?
Yep.
Okay. And the idea of a brewery is brew pub?
Well, so brew pubs are allowed under the current regs. Brewery, however, which may not serve, so like this is very large scale, but like 2 Roads in Stratford,
Yeah.
this would not be allowed in the center of town. Or a back east, that would not be allowed in the center of town.
So a brewery versus a brew pub?
Brew pub means, you're associated with a restaurant.
Okay.
Restaurant really is like I believe IBC was the chain. It used to be a restaurant chain that brewed its own beer. And there was a few down
John
in
Hargridge was another.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, they brewed their own beer, but they were.
Yep.
I wouldn't. Cambridge House is. Yeah, you could call them that. They're a brewery too. Yeah.
So basically then, if you serve food that was supplementing a restaurant,
That's a different ballgame.
that's a different thing. If you're just selling beer, okay, even if you have a bar to do it, that's a different thing.
Yeah, and all of these uses, one of the concerns the zoning commission discussed was, the impact to the quality of life or character of neighborhoods that these uses may have. So the change would mean it's as of right use, so it's an administrative review by the zoning commission. However, because a liquor license is required in the state of Connecticut, they would be subject to a special permit for the liquor license. So there is a degree of control over the special permit, such as, let's say it was a large operation, like saying, I'm going to take, just going to throw it out, the Andy's Plaza. I'm putting a brewery in the Andes Plaza, occupying the whole thing. Well, because it would be subject to a special permit, things such as hours of operation, exterior encroachment of the use, whether, or any outside events require a permit to the town, those are the sort of things that the zoning commission could consider and put into any approvals for a change of use for that liquor license. So I know that's something that this commission would be concerned with quality of life, character of neighborhoods, etc.
Was there any discussion of how this might impact new residential units in town? Like, I want to live next door to a brewery kind of thinking, or?
Not really, because honestly, the areas that people have been looking at, I don't think, there'll be a degree of separation between, for example, the Simscroft property versus downtown property. There'll be enough separation, and the fact that you have Iron Horse Boulevard that provides a kind of out if there was a traffic impact. So it's kind of a unique situation, this change.
So Michael, just so I understand, section 3.2I, it's taking out restaurant, bar, and putting in brewery, winery, distillery,
No,
or adding?
adding.
So the restaurant, bar would stay there, and the brewery, winery, distillery would be added?
The way the center code works, which is completely different from the code for the rest of the town, similar to the Hartford form-based code. Since the form-based code, it classifies uses and lumps them all as subcategories. So under restaurant, bar, you have anything, you have now brewery, winery, distillery, you have tavern, you have bar,
So
you
it
have,
would go up.
you have all these different categories. They're all just said, this is a restaurant bar. So these are allowed in the following zoning districts.
So it's adding brewery, winery, distillery under that?
And
Okay.
it's taking it out of section 3.4D, because it exists.
Under light industrial.
And that was the problem that we ran into, because it was defined, and it was sitting in light industrial, technically wasn't allowed. So that's what prompted this change.
Even though more or less, what's going on there is the same thing, more or less. Okay. So, from a resident's point of view, it's no more distasteful to have a brewery in a building that would be,
Is there any light industrial in the town center code? And why would someone, why is the zoning commission considering taking those permitted uses out of light industrial?
Right. Why not just
The
leave
comment
it?
was economic development, and, they were, tourism, et cetera, associated with these uses that, they thought it was actually allowed in the code. So when the applicant and staff came before them and said, we have a problem, it's not what you think, you can't do these uses under your current code. They were in the assumption, no, you can
In the
do
town
this.
center?
This is, like I said, this is just for the town center, so this isn't town-wide, it's
So, okay.
really geographically focused.
But I agree.
Because that's what's unique, since we have 3 actually zoning codes, and you rarely see any changes to this code. I think there's only, in the time I've been here, this is the second amendment.
there was one
In
about
5 years?
signs.
This one, the second one, there was one for the Fiddler's Green Complex for the
Sign.
event center. So that's how you have now
Oh, right, yeah.
Storyteller's
Oh,
Cottage.
yeah.
So this is the second
But
one.
there was something about the sign for rent center.
Yeah, there was.
Right.
But going back to what Bill said, why take it out of under light industrial? Why not just leave that in and just add it to the 3.2I?
The concern was you'd have a conflict with the regs saying it's a use that's considered industrial and a use that's considered restaurant.
Okay.
So the other option was allow the light industrial in the center. When we started talking about some of the uses, there's crematories,
Yeah.
the list goes on, and we're like, those are all stuff that have potential of negative impact
Right.
to a
Okay.
larger area.
Yeah.
So the answer to Bill's question is there's no light industrial in the town center anyway, correct?
Not allowed under the code. Existing, however, obviously you have the Simsbury construction center, or construction yard. Let's call that Bears Industrial that exists right now in the center.
That was there prior to the town center code.
Correct.
Pre-existing non-conforming.
Right.
Just like, for example, Nito's Garage, the repair shop, and Gibbs Mobile, both of which are two other uses which are not allowed in the center code, but they predate the center regs, therefore existing non-conforming.
David?
I'm sorry, David.
Why are we looking at moving into all SC 1, 2, and 3? If I follow the color code on the map, it appears that the site you described is in SC 3.
Because it's going under the category of restaurants, unlike the other codes in town that kind of break everything down, it's kind of a blanket. Restaurants applies to 12 different uses. So therefore, these 12 uses have been all identified as they can be located in these districts.
Are we
Because
opening up-
otherwise, they would have to create a separate category for just for breweries, distilleries, which the commission, they were, their preference was put it with restaurants and bars. So that's why that's why it's allowed in all those zoning districts versus put it alone and put it only one or two places.
My concern would be that there's no, unless there's more detail, there's no definition in terms of the size of brewery. I respect what you said earlier in terms of they'd have to get a liquor license and things like that. So there's a secondary set of control on that. But, this basically says that in the whole center area, SC 1, 2, 3, is available for brewery, winery, and distillery. And I can understand, and with the description where you said this particular applicant wants to place the distillery, I have no problem with that. If there were a large brewery going into some place, I'd have a problem with that. So I'm trying to understand. Now your explanation as to why they decided to do that, but
I don't think you have properties that would fit a large brewery in the center. You have a lot of small properties. In order, like you want to say, like 2 roads, for example. I know I keep saying that, but that's a brewery that's 200,000 square feet of building. You just
buy up.
you'd have to buy multiple blocks in the center in order to fit something like that. It just won't happen.
the parking lots that are currently state-owned parking lots,
You would have to purchase those from the state.
it could be done.
That wouldn't support a 100,000 square foot building or 200,000 square foot building. Then you run into issues with parking to support such use.
Okay,
But I thought you said that,
That scale,
like a 2 roads this wouldn't cover something like a brewery. It was more of a brew pub.
No,
no.
this is adding a brewery.
No, but that size, I thought you said precludes the...
That size, really, you don't have the property in the center that could support that
Could
size.
Fitzsimmons turn into a brewery?
Could what?
Andy's.
Andy's Fitzy's could, but, I mean, that's the whole thing, the whole development would have to go to that use. And even then, you're talking,
36,000?
yeah, that's not the same 100,000 square foot building plus, and that's, it's still big, it's big.
Craft breweries are the thing that are very popular. So they're not the 100,000 square foot. I don't know what size you need for a craft brewery, but we've listed a couple just by name here locally. I'm not convinced that they couldn't go into some of the current existing places in town center.
So Dave, with that concern in mind, Would you say that that is in conflict with the plan of conservation and development in a particular, specific fashion?
No, because the plan of conservation and development certainly is encouraging, and I personally am encouraging economic development. But I think that you make a significant change like this, that says brewery, winery, distillery.
A little too open-ended?
That's what's striking me right now.
How do you write it so that it's allowed as long as it's not too big?
Alan,
How do you do that?
I suspect you're more experienced at this than I am, but I don't know. I'm just expressing
No, I get it.
okay, I won't restate my concern.
No, I get what you're saying.
So can I ask you a question? So when you say craft brewery, so let's say it's a place like Cambridge House, would you be
Right.
opposed to something like that going in downtown? Or are you more afraid of the mass distributing like a Two Roads or a Back
They're
East?
canning or bottling.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
To the latter.
I am the latter. I'm concerned about something of that size. Craft brewery, I can see it being, in most cases, very appropriate.
yeah.
Because they would almost certainly have a restaurant associated with it. You can almost associate it of its nature, those are relatively small.
Right.
I gotta tell you, I had the opportunity to invest in a craft brewery. They have expanded 3 times since it started. Now, this is not in the state of Connecticut, it happens to be in Texas. But, here's a craft
They do
brewery.
everything big in Texas.
But it's a craft brewery that hit a home run.
Yeah.
There's no-
Basically, they can't expand fast enough.
Mhm.
And
There's no type of brewery that could be named that would limit its size. For example, is our definition of a craft brewery versus a brewery?
Or
Well,
marketing.
you could mention,
Square
just
footage.
hearing some of the commission's comments, you talk about how it could be considered consistent with the plan of conservation and development as relates to economic development.
Yeah, right.
However, you raise concerns as it relates to places you want to protect, places that people in the process said they're proud of. I'm trying to think of a way to say this, your norm, what we discussed earlier with that previous application, the zone change of Route 44, considering your budding property and protecting character,
Areas.
and not, that this change would not create conflict in some of the placemaking efforts that are celebrated in the plan of conservation development.
But maybe a way to say this, we'd be concerned about the character of the town if a mass brewery went in. Right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say.
That's my
It's,
concern.
you don't want a mass brewery to go in town because it's not going to be in line with how we perceive the town center. It's.
But either we approve the text amendment or we don't. I mean, we can say what we're worried about, that won't make any difference at all. We approved it or we didn't.
Well, it's only a referral.
Well, that's why I asked the question of,
It's advisory in nature.
And then obviously your disapproval would trigger just a supermajority vote of the zoning commission.
Which is the same as a majority, so.
Yeah, and this is,
I don't know, I guess there's a chance if we worded it in a motion that we're concerned about size and scale.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
perfect way of saying
That
it.
might trigger them to.
Yeah, just
Okay,
keep
they
in mind
regulations to
size and scale.
modify it. How about we
So-
could say that as part of it, that they consider size and scale.
That's a perfect.
I was gonna say,
We got right here.
Good
Scale.
At a certain size, or not to exceed a certain size.
Right.
I think that's beyond our,
Metrics, nobody,
Yeah.
nobody does metrics.
so let me take a shot at making a motion,
Okay.
all right? I would move that we make a positive referral to zoning commission application number 18-64 and find it consistent with the plan of conservation and development with respect to economic development. However, the commission
questions?
Would ask the zoning commission to consider limiting the size and/or scale to minimize adverse effects.
About conflict with other parts of the plan.
Hold on, minimize adverse effects on signature areas or community character.
I like that.
I second.
Okay. Do you have any discussion? Alan, what were you saying?
No, I think you covered it in a different way. I was going in the direction of that it's possible to build something that's so large and its use so intense that that would conflict with parts of the POC.
Any further discussion?
I do like the idea. I mean, it's a cute idea for the distillery and everything. It would be cute.
Hearing no other discussion, all in favor of the positive referral, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Very good. Okay, continuing with new business. We are in receipt of a new application. This is for a re-subdivision. Application number 18-02 of Robert Green Associates agent, Robert Cave, owner, for a 2-lot re-subdivision on the property located at 14 Roswell Road. Assessor's map A16, block 307, lot 015, zone R40. So we are receiving this today, the 11th of December, and a public hearing will be scheduled for January 8th, 2019, which is our first regularly scheduled meeting of next year. Okay.
Do we have anything except for this?
Yeah, is there, okay, I don't see the applicant here.
But we just have this. There's nothing attached to it.
There were-
Oh, there was?
Yours, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a re-subdivision of existing lot in the corner of Roswell and West Mountain Road. Come on up here, just do it quick. So the applicant did not attend tonight because this is a mandatory public hearing under state statutes. This is a re-subdivision, so really there's no action requested of the commission to set a public hearing. So they will soon be here. They're also revising these plans because their staff had some erosion sediment control measure concerns.
This is what he wants to subdivide.
Yep.
Where's Maureen Drive?
So Maureen's way
Yeah,
south.
way.
So
Yeah,
So this is near,
Canton.
Can't run over.
Yeah, it's Canton and Roswell, because
further
Roswell.
than-
He says you know it better.
Well, yeah, so you've got Canton, because Roswell goes from Canton and then swings around in like an arc that ends on westbound.
So it's possible
yeah.
we could discuss this, have a public hearing, and never have an applicant show up?
No, they're required to show up at the public
Good.
hearing. Yeah, no, it's just that
We've
because
had a
this is,
rash of no-shows.
yeah, because this is a public hearings required, really, we should limit our conversation to opening the public hearing. But this is just to tell you, file. One thing is that the commission, a referral needs to be made to the Conservation Commission for review. Because it's a re-subdivision, it's a mandatory review that there's no regulated activities, which they had a soil scientist fill out. There's nothing shown on the maps. The soil scientist agrees with the maps. There's no inland wetland soil present. However, that still needs to be referred to the Wetlands Commission pursuant to state statute. Also, they will have to review and give you an advisory opinion on both the erosion sediment control plan pursuant to Chapter 128 of the Town Code and the open space plan.
Can you tell us how long ago this subdivision went in?
The 50s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is an old, it was a double lot. know why.
So they did, and then, so now they're asking to, okay, so,
Hence why I triggered the re-subdivision and mandatory public hearing, we triggered for this application.
There's like one house on the lot.
Yeah, and they pushed the house way on Roswell and never touched what's out. But there's some steep grades, we'll discuss this at the hearing. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on the
And all that
details.
Okay, so-
conservation can be done by,
It will be done next Tuesday night.
It just seems a little odd that we don't get to see any of the application. We saw the application, sorry, but none of the documents that support it.
Should have been uploaded online.
Yeah, there is.
I didn't see
I
it.
didn't
All
see
right,
it.
then I will address
And,
with my staff.
this would be grounds for rejection.
No, I mean, we have the copies here, so I'll
The
talk
the
to...
commission is in receipt of an application without the supporting documents.
I'll talk to my staff, because it should have been scanned and uploaded minimally to your digital packet, and
I didn't see anything. Anybody else?
No, I looked at it.
All I saw were the sketchy copies that were with the application.
Yeah, I will address, that should have been, that was an error on my staff's of not uploading those documents, so that should have been uploaded, because this was filed a couple of...
Okay.
so when we talk about the receipt of a complete application, we're talking about us.
Yeah.
Not just the application form, but all the
Not
supporting
just
documentation.
And who?
Right, because this was not the, sorry, Aaron, but this was not this preliminary discussion. This was an actual application. It's supposed to be complete.
Which, like I said, we have all that supporting documentation. I apologize, that should have been uploaded and part of your packet, so
Okay. Well, let's slide this time.
it's on my side. I'll take
Okay,
that.
it's not the applicant.
It's not the applicant.
Okay.
And who sets that public hearing? We do.
You do not have to set the
This one's
public hearing. This is
automatically-
mandatory by state statute. No action is required.
Re-subdivision.
I know, but who set, when is the public hearing? Yes.
It's going to be on January
January
8th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Our next meeting.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I
So
missed that.
the only thing I need is, that, like I said, the referral to the, a motion for referral, to refer the application to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to ask for a referral from the Conservation Commission for zoning application number 18-02.
Planning.
Second.
Oh, sorry, Planning Commission application, yeah.
We're going to talk about when we get the supporting documents.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's a motion.
Second.
David seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of sending a referral to the Conservation Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Good. All right, that takes care of what's on the agenda. I think, Mr. Glidden, was there something else in the package that was handed out?
You have a notice from a tentative determination that was sent to the Planning Commission from the Department of Environmental and Energy Protection for the discharge permit for the Water Pollution Control Authority. By statute, they're required to inform planning, zoning, and wetlands of determination of the permit.
Do we need to take action?
It's just informing you of the permit, and if you would like to submit public comments, where to send your public comments.
Do we need to recognize our receipt of that in the minutes or anything?
It was
Okay, anything else? Any correspondence or
no correspondence.
Can I,
Alan?
I'd like to renew my pitch for putting maps. I'd like to, because, it's nice you carry that around, but there are many meetings from many boards and commissions where people say, where is that, So we used to have maps up here that were zoning maps and listed streets. Can't tell you how many times somebody would point that's over there. I just think it's a good idea.
Would you like to make sure that I always have the computers to hook up the overhead, yes or no?
I'd like them here paper all the time. This room's used for all kinds of things. And people are frequently wondering, where is that? You know, what's that zone?
Right, see what you can do, Mike.
I'll talk to Mr. Roy and see if he
Used to
gets
be
it
like that.
perfect. Yeah, I know, he's.
But, yeah, those pinup boards are suspiciously empty.
Vacant, yeah. And the whole room's painted the same color. We need something in here.
Okay, Commissioners, any other
So we
comments?
can take up interior design.
Yeah.
Just a question about when do we have to discuss what was discussed in executive session?
Oh. Well,
Well, we can't really discuss it.
Yeah, it's not on your agenda.
Gotcha.
we'll be
So-
hearing something.
That's what I was-
Bob DiCrescenzo will keep us informed. And
Okay,
will-
so we don't
staff
have
will-
to do anything until we...
There's no action
Okay,
requested.
I guess that's my question.
That's all.
Okay.
All right, great. Commissioners,
Well,
this,
So just on that point though, and not to discuss it specifically, but some of us commissioners were not commissioners at the time that the issue may or may not have been discussed in the past. And there was some information that I think that
Maybe
some,
appropriate to talk to staff after the meeting.
got it.
Transcript.
Yeah.
And she's there, it's like, how am I going to write
No.
this in the minutes?
We'll talk after the meeting.
Okay, fair enough.
So, Commissioners, this is the last meeting of this year, okay?
You buy us a gift?
It's not where I was going with that, Al, but I just want to just give a recap on the attendance. I think this is very interesting. Okay, so Holly was here for 10 out of 16. Dave Blooming, 10 out of 16. Aaron, 14 out of 16. Okay. So you only missed one. You get a gold star.
Wow.
Craig, pretty good. 9. You were here 9 out of 16. Alan, 12. Excellent.
5?
Yep.
Oh, I apologize. I'll do better in the new year.
And Elizabeth was here 10 times. Rich was here 9. Gary, 0. And however I did this, I didn't miss a single meeting.
All right.
Whoa.
Congrats.
2 gold stars.
2 gold
Okay.
stars. So, thank you for your, your commitment to the commission. I really enjoy working with everybody. I think we have a good commission here. You know, and, if someone can't make it, they generally let me know. It's not a no-show situation. So, I really appreciate that.
We've always had a quorum, too.
Yeah.
We've never had to cancel a meeting because of lack of a quorum.
How embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yep, good.
Oh, nice.
Let's keep it up.
All right.
All right.
Well, happy New Year.
Yep.
Thank
You
you.
too, guys.
Best attendance buys
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
If you would.
So moved.
My second.
Yeah, motion to adjourn by David Blumey, seconded by Aaron Levitt Smith. Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, passes unanimously, and we are done at 8:25 p.m.
Okay.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.